Yo, everybody. Welcome to Unscripted Intelligence. This is a podcast, a live podcast. Where we
live, is it?
It's super live, mega live, hyper live. Like there's people right now that are watching us and are going to comment and are going to talk about both you and I. Live podcast where we talk about human intelligence, artificial intelligence, how they intersect and how they impact everything from education to the workforce.
On this podcast, we interview innovators, thought leaders, and change makers who are making waves and shaking things up. These are live conversations that are unchartered and unfiltered as we create space for what isn't being discussed. And always, these conversations are unavoidable.
We're never going to get that. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into this episode.
I'm Dr. Michelle Arvin, the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement and the chief academic officer for ProSolve. The Human Intelligence Movement is a grassroots coalition of people who are coming together to ensure that we have the uniquely human skills we need to succeed, thrive, and flourish in this AI-driven world.
Yes, and my name is Arvin Ross. I am your other co-host to this amazing podcast. I'm also the immersive learning designer and facilitator for the Human Intelligence Movement, as well as the co-founder of ProSolve.
And this series is all about uniquely human skills. And it's focused on what is it that makes us truly human that machines can't replace? And really, how do we focus on reclaiming humanity in this time?
Yeah, we get the privilege and the honor of interviewing and spotlighting risk takers, rule breakers, people who are kind of rewriting leadership and like what's normal in this intelligence age. In addition to that, it's a community conversation. So there are people that are going to be watching live that will get to comment, respond to some of our questions, and basically be a part of the conversation and the dialogue. We will typically read out some of those comments as they're coming in and read out some of the answers to some of these questions. So it's not just the 4 people that you will see on the screen. It is all of you who are watching live that will be participating. In fact, the first thing we're going to do, if you're watching live right now, in the chat, go ahead and toss out your name, where you're viewing from, and I don't know, something. Actually, the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word struggle, okay? If you're watching live, comment your name, where you're from, and the first thing that pops in your mind when I say the word struggle. Michelle, who are some of our amazing guests that are going to be on here with us today?
Well, fabulous. First of all, Dr. Mark's here. And so he's already chimed in and talked to Ben. So I'm excited to see him. And we have 2 guests joining our conversation tonight. I am really excited to introduce first Brian Arnold. Brian, welcome to Unscripted Intelligence. Brian there's so many things to say about Brian. Okay, first of all, I have to tell this quick little story about Brian was one of the first people I ever pitched the Human Intelligence Movement to. We were at ASU GSV conference in San Diego. We met up on a bench out in the beautiful sunshine and started talking about the Human Intelligence Movement. That was just when it was a concept over 2 years ago. So very excited. I would say Brian's one of the founding members. And I just love Brian's sense of humor. So buckle up because it's going to be a fun time tonight getting into this conversation. Brian spent the late 90s at Nickelodeon Studios designing entertainment for kids, working on SpongeBob, SquarePants, and I think there was a stint with Disney too, right, Brian?
No, not officially.
Making that up. But
officially.
But it's great. Keep going. I'm getting more and more. Yeah.
So Brian holds a PhD in educational technology and educational psychology, which are 2 fascinating sides of a coin. Yeah. And he's an adjunct at National University and writes the Humane Technologist newsletter that you can find on LinkedIn. So super excited to have you here, Dr. Arnold.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Meghan Freeman. Meghan, welcome to Unscripted Intelligence. So great to have you with us. And Meghan has spent the last 25 years in public education. She was named a Teacher of the Year and co-founded a California public charter school that was recognized as a distinguished school for closing achievement gaps. It's pretty remarkable what Meghan led her school to do. And now she's the co-CEO of Illuminate XR, where she designs immersive learning. Arvin, you two are going to hit it off, that blend AI, VR, and neuroscience. I'm seeing a connection here with Brian, too. She shapes the future of how learning feels, and she's really honest enough to talk about what power lies within all of that work. So welcome, Meghan. Brian, what did I miss? Anything you want to share with us and our audience?
Oh, you did a great job. Thank you so much for having me.
Excited to be here and get into it.
Well, fantastic. We've also got Jason Blair joining us and Scott Moss joining us. I know you all know those two names. So welcome, guys. We've got lots of people joining us. So Arvin, I'll turn it back to you to kick us off.
Let's do this. Okay. So in our series, Uniquely Human, we are really wanting to spotlight things that make us uniquely human. So the concept, the idea for this episode is all about struggle. Do it with me. Just everybody say the word struggle. Struggle. We want to talk about struggling, how that connects and relates to learning. Many of you know, if you've been in any sort of a space with Michelle and I, the word productive struggles oftentimes come up, productive struggles. And we want to kind of center this episode around that idea, around that concept, the positives and negatives, the truth behind it. We want to uncover the truth behind the connection between struggling and learning. If there is one, maybe there's not. Maybe it's what you think it is. Maybe it's not what you think it is. So we want to kind of center the conversation around there. So to kick it off with, the first question that I thought about a little bit ago to ask to kind of kick this off. And let me see if I can get my words correctly on it. I want to toss this out to us here in the chat, but then also, us here live on camera, but then also everyone in the chat, please answer this question as well by typing it in the chat. Have you ever robbed someone of growth because you couldn't tolerate watching them struggle? Have you ever done that? Is there any sort of wisdom or revelation or anything that moment then taught you later on about yourself, about that person, about the thing they were learning? Have you ever robbed someone of growth because you couldn't watch them struggling? And what did you learn from it? What did you learn from being a thief?
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
Oh, me. Okay. So I feel like I might as well put on like a bandit mask right now for robbing people of these opportunities. So there's sort of two ideas that jump to mind. One is the personal one. I have a daughter who's an adult now, but growing up, I didn't want to see her struggle. And so I would step in and try and pave the path, learn from my experience, learn from my wisdom. Here's what I think you should do, rather than letting her have that productive struggle moment. Emotionally, that's what I did. Physically, I was the more permissive parent. Like I would let her struggle with something physically, even though it might result in a small injury or, no hospital visits, but, a little ouchie or a boo-boo, so that learning can take place. In a more professional sense, I think that key word of the struggle is productive, right? You're watching a student, they're getting towards the end of the class, they're not grasping the concept, they need to get to a certain level. There have been times where I've given them the thing that they need, with the idea that the struggle was no longer productive. It was just something that stood between them and the next step. I still felt like I was taking something from them. And if we had infinite time, I would definitely have preferred to let that play out. But those are my two big heists. I'll hand it over to the next person now.
I love it.
Well, Scott, I just have to say Scott's agreeing with you about helping his daughter with homework. And I'll jump in because I think it's interesting, Brian, Megan, and I all are parents of about the same generation. We have adult children. And so I wonder if we're going to see a theme here around parenting and struggle, because I would guess Scott is similar. So that's going to be an interesting thing versus Arvin as a parent of younger children. So I'm just putting that out there around how parenting maybe has changed. Anyway, okay, for me, it was I always tell this story about my youngest son, Sam. Like, he wouldn't have made it across the graduation stage had I not removed a lot of barriers and struggles, because I was so mad at the education system and some of the things they were asking him to do. And this was like during COVID. I mean, some of the most compliance, how do I fill time things that were happening, that I would just do them for him. Like, I mean, talk about like horrible parenting. Like, we would sit and I would just like do his work with him so that he didn't have to struggle through some of this, like filling in the blanks on the worksheets, just to move through it. And anyway, I'm really truth telling tonight, Arvin, about doing kids' homework. But like, I just saw like, this kid has to graduate from high school. So how do I remove any struggle that maybe could have benefited him in the long run about life and about perseverance and resiliency? And instead it was like, how do I get through the work so that we can get him across the graduation stage? And, you know, he is an amazing young man that I don't believe that he perseveres and is resilient even despite that. But when I think about robbing people of opportunity, that story comes to mind.
I love it.
Yeah, Michelle, I can agree. I am a mom, and my children taught me so much more about being a better leader, right? So the enabling part, right? That part of, we don't want to see our kids struggle, so we enable them to get maybe a path more paved than it should be. And it's those teenage years, I feel like, that as a parent tested me the most on this, where, you know, you're watching them with their first relationship, maybe making not the best decision, and you're sitting back deciding whether you step in or whether you let them learn about that under your tenure as a parent. And it translates so much into the world of our work. So those of us that have sat in the public administration, or even just as leadership, and as you start with a small, you know, I have been blessed to be in the traditional sector. So teacher, climbed up the traditional ranks, but then was bold enough to start my own school. So I mortgaged my home. I started a school and started with this little founding team, right? Where it was really messy, and really it was a group of us. Once the school started getting bigger, right? And I had to hire people. I found that I did similar things that I did with my teenagers, with the people that I hired, where I would look at someone underneath me, because I had already struggled. I had already done this. The easier thing to do was go in and save them from the pain that I had already experienced in that state. Yeah. But it robbed them of the opportunity of learning to do it their way. And what even as a leader became more prominent, it robbed me to learn that there might have been a different way to do this, because they may have tackled the problem differently, actually done a better job than maybe I would have done. And because I stepped in and I didn't allow them to do it their way, because I was so scared it wasn't going to be done, and I didn't want to hurt them, or I didn't want to see them get gray hairs, we all have. I didn't give them that opportunity. And so I learned the hard way that you gotta let them. It has to be productive, right? You don't want them to jump off the cliff. I said, I always promise that if you're jumping off a cliff, I will come be your safety net. But I'm going to let you feel this and try your way, because I think one of the consequences of robbing people is we squash innovation. And on this podcast, so many times we have talked about innovation and allowing for innovation to thrive. And I think it's in that struggle and in that messy space of uncomfortability that an adult, a child, sits and becomes innovative.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Arvin.
No, you go.
Well, really quick, I wanted to sort of plus one with what Meg is saying. I think there's sort of a human nature piece too, is that what we tell ourselves is benevolence can sometimes be control. It can sometimes be ego. It can sometimes be sort of seeing things our way and letting someone else have our way. And so it's tricky to have that moment of being like, is this really for their own good, or is this just me being impatient?
Oh my gosh. I love that. Okay, that we have to unpack. And then the other thing, I want to go back to what Megan said, because I think that hits that rescuing piece, Brian. Like she talked about rescuing, and I think that's really important. Like, why are we rescuing it? Is it really about them, or is it more about ourselves? And then the piece you said, Megan, around robbing yourself of learning a different way, seeing a different approach. I mean, that I think people forget about that part of it. So
okay, I have so many thoughts. I was trying to take notes and y'all just talking too fast, so I kind of gave up. Michelle, before you read some of the other people's responses, I feel like I want to take this down a route now where let's talk about and let's name some of the things that we're actually stealing. What are we robbing, or what are we missing out on? Right? Somebody talked about perseverance. We talked about the ability to see a new way to do things. I want to take a couple minutes to unpack, and for everyone in the comments to kind of share what are some of the things that we're stealing or we're losing whenever we keep people from that productive struggle. But before that, Michelle, want to read those comments?
Yeah, a couple of things. Jason weighed in that it's really often easy for adults to give kids the abridged version of life instead of giving them that moment of discovery. And I think, Brian, that echoes what you were saying about imparting your wisdom, your lived experiences, and how did that maybe shape your daughter. I think that Mark talks about in leadership, there's been times of pressure, like to-dos and deadlines, and then that causes the sense of urgency to solve for people versus coaching them through it and giving them space. And that's that space for trying, risk-taking, and failing versus just doing it for them. More examples of parenting. Jenna talks about how she didn't have the patience for her son to learn how to buckle himself. And while that's so simple to buckle your seatbelt, think about what she robbed him of developing just that perseverance, that grit, and also robbed herself of developing some more patience and finding, maybe some joy in like helping him learn that. So lots of examples here.
I love it. So I want to hop back into the question that I asked, which is what are some of the things that we're either robbing or that we're actually losing by removing that struggle? And I'll start out by saying, for me, what the three of you said to me, the thing that's the most prominent is, what am I actually losing or not having the ability to develop? I do a good bit of like mentorship and youth mentorship, and I have such a love for productive struggle because that's my whole life has been a struggle. And it's like, the things that I've learned, no one can take from me because I've seen it, right? I've fought for it. And so it's mine. So I love to give other people the opportunity, but even someone as bent on productive struggle as I am, I still find myself consistently wanting to save people from their own results or the results of their own decisions. I think the biggest thing that I've learned, or the biggest thing that I've learned that I lose whenever I hop in those moments is a sense of control, or a sense of the biggest thing I lose is I lose the ability to work through my control issues. Mm-hmm. I don't like seeing people that I love receive the consequences of their stupid decisions. If I can just be completely blunt, if I'm the type of person where I can tend to see if you're going to fall into a pothole or a puddle, I'm going to tell you. In fact, I'm going to tell you pretty aggressively so you don't fall into it. Then also, whenever you fall into the puddle, I'm going to be the one that usually comes with a blanket or a towel to come and help you clean up. My wife has challenged me to sit in that uncomfortability and either say the puddle is there, but then also if someone decides to step into it, take a step back, let them experience it and let them do the cleaning themselves. And it has been so uncomfortable for me and it's taught me so much more about like myself, my control issues. What are the root of me wanting to help for like maybe 20% is a love and affection, all that sort of stuff, and then the other 80% is I'm in control. I need to be in control of this moment. So for me, that's one of the things that I would answer that question with.
If I could push the conversation along those very lines, to me, so I'm hearing a theme of there isn't enough time. There isn't enough resource. We're in a culture where efficiency is important. Everything has to be done. And what we're saying, though, because we think we're the parents, we're the wise ones, we're the teachers, that there isn't enough time. But it's our perception that there isn't enough time. And I think there's that danger there that we rationalize doing what we want, having that control, because we decide that there's a scarcity of resource, that there isn't enough time for this thing to take place. And sometimes that's legitimate external. But I think that, yeah, there's sort of a slippery slope. And if I can jump in, Arvin, what are we robbing them of? And that's that authentic learning, right? That sense of ownership that comes from having your own aha moment. And we're handing them a fish, right? Instead of allowing them to learn to buckle their own seatbelts. To mix the metaphor.
Someone who's worked with a lot of at-risk youth, I keep thinking in my mind, Arvin, when you were talking about saving people, and a lot of students that came to my school had stories that most children shouldn't have going to school. Experiencing a lot of kids walking in the door with things that I couldn't control as an educator. And you just walk in and you love them, right? You love the kids because they showed up, and you love who they are because they're here. And what I found in my career is that educators, we want to have, I always call it the Mary Poppins bag, right? We walk in with this bag and we have this expectation that we should be able to pull out every trick under the sun, and we should be able to solve the problems of our students for them. And we rob them of the ability to solve it themselves. And when I'm working with at-risk youth, I've spent so much time in my professional development when teachers are going into the field as empathetic, loving, caring souls. It's so important not to lower expectations or not allow for students in the space to struggle and have to reach a high bar. Because when we lower expectations for students that have struggled outside of school, because they've struggled outside of school, we're robbing them of the ability to have successful tools in their lives. And so struggle, is depending on whether it's authentic or it's designed. Some of the best people in my life have experienced significant struggle, and how they chose to persevere through the struggle is what makes them magical and what makes me want to be near them. And so it's the idea that we don't have to have all the answers, that you might not pass the finish line now, and we're going to have to figure out that later. And, allowing for the breath to be taken in this busy, very fast-paced world that we live in, because the consequence of human behavior diminishing as a result of our decisions is something I was never willing to accept.
Yes. What I love about what you just kind of touched on is this conversation is so relevant because of AI. How much struggle is being removed from everyday occurrences, challenges, like just things that we're supposed to, that we do, that is now removed because of AI. I don't want to get into the AI component yet, but what you're saying is just so relevant because we bend towards that. Our natural bend as leaders or educators is to remove that struggle, and we have yet to see case studies on what the end result of this mentality is going to be.
Well, Arvin, if I could add to that and package what Megan is saying too, is that in a darker sense, in the human nature, I think a lot of us, whether we want to admit it or not, because we're supposed to get real here, we're showing up to have that hero moment, to have that savior moment, to be that person who walks in. And so we want circumstances to play into that role so that we can exhibit that behavior. And AI threatens to take away some of that gratification.
Yes, 100%.
Say more about that, Brian. What do you elaborate on when you say take away the gratification?
So, and I think we're all sort of on the same page here, but we tell ourselves that we're being selfless and we're there for the students and it's all about the learner. But at the same time, what fills our buckets for a lot of us, and maybe I'm painting with too wide of a brush, is when we get to feel like we've made a difference. We were the hero. We were the catalyst. We were the thing that made the difference. And that's part of our ego. That's our narrative. It's not about the benefit of the student in the sense that we often pretend it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Honest.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of us make mistakes on that, as we love our kids so much, but you got to love them enough to not leave them where they're at. And to me, that's the heart of working with youth is making sure the central focus is not the adult, but taking our own ego out of it and looking at the natural needs of the students. And I would say it even goes for gifted students too. So students who are so gifted that a teacher struggles to be able to meet the demands of their cognitive ability. And I've seen many gifted students sit in a space of just disconnect. And so I think it's really important that we as teachers, as we sit in struggle, accept it and be honest about it. It's so funny. As teachers, we don't sit in the classroom and say, gosh, I don't know how to handle this, kids. Let's sit down and talk about it. And the best teachers on the planet do that. I love it. They sit in the room and go, here's my problem. I've got 40 of you sitting here. How are we going to solve this together? Because by the end of this class, we got to have a solution. And very few teachers do that. Very few.
Michelle, I kind of have it. She just made me think about another question to kind of pivot. If you want to answer.
No, go ahead. I can maybe say a couple of things that are going in the chat. Jason, Mark has given a couple of things, just, agreeing with and building on what you said, Arvin, around taking struggle out of the equation really robs that opportunity to discover and explore this idea that we can often remove struggle too quickly. Jason talks about how he thinks some of this is around control. And I think, we're getting to that. It's like interesting to see us dig deep. And that when learning becomes more student-centered and ambiguous, the struggle becomes part of the learning process, not something to eliminate because it's blocking a predetermined outcome, which is very interesting when you think about learning and you think about teaching. And if you have a predetermined outcome, a place where you want all kids to get to, then it is less ambiguous and it is less student-centered. It's just, I'm clicking right now about accountability and compliance-based measures and how that we act like we allow for productive struggle, but at the end, it's very performative because it's either about rescuing for our own egos, like Brian, you've so brought up, but also about eliminating so that we can get to the outcome that we're looking for.
Okay, here's what I just thought about. I would love it if every person on this call and people watching give me a definition or the essence of productive struggle. Like, we keep talking about it, and I don't want to hear the struggle that leads to learning or growth. Okay, that's great, that's fine, that's cute, but give me some elements, some characteristics. Like, what are some of the observables, right? That there is a struggle that is productive versus a struggle that is not productive. Give me some more context, some definition, some meat, some characteristics, some qualities, some aspects, anything around that. Go.
I'll throw out something because I'm shy. So I think that one of the core things that makes it productive is that there's a chance that it will result in growth or learning. Like, it's not productive struggle for me to continuously try to fly by flapping my arms. It doesn't matter how long I do that, I'm not going to take flight. Sure. So as long as there's that opportunity, so to me, the magical ingredient is the opportunity for success. If that's present, then the struggle is productive.
Ooh, I want to go, but someone else go.
Go.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. I see your 5 and I raise you 5. I would say that it has to have two things. One, the opportunity for that growth and that learning, like you said. But in my opinion, what makes a struggle productive is if there's something within the struggle that motivates the person to keep struggling. Some sort of hook in their nostril that allows them to keep on coming and fighting. Something that builds a subconscious layer of resilience, because the thing that they're struggling with, they're motivated to get like to the end of it. There has to be something in order for it to be productive, something that makes them keep going so they don't just give up prematurely.
So, Arvin, I'm thinking a lot about my own productive struggle and less about the classroom right now. And we, in our work, Arvin, we talk a lot about impossible problems and putting the impossible in front of us. And I have never in my career, up until really working with you and working at ProSolve, understood that idea of putting the impossible in front of me and then me being motivated to chase it and feeling like I can solve an impossible problem and I can do hard things that I never believed that I could do. And I think, so I'm thinking, because that's struggle. Like I feel like I'm on the struggle bus every single day trying to figure something out and solve something and do something that has never been done before. And so I'm thinking about what gets me up every day to put on my running shoes to keep going after it. And I think some of it is my belief in myself and that feeling of like really being able to see something that was impossible that I didn't think I could do. And I think it's also the belief that others have that I can do it. And both of those colliding just fuel me to be in struggle and know that I can accomplish and do amazing hard things. So
I love that.
How do we bottle that up?
I think there's a big difference between, so like productive struggle is if you unpack it, there's designed struggle where like in a classroom, you might see a teacher put a problem in front of them. There's a path that the teacher is expecting the students to go down during that process. And then there's authentic struggle, like a child who's experiencing bullying, for example. It's, where there's ego involved and uncertainty, and there might not be one path. It reminds me of leadership a lot, or what you were talking about, authentic struggle, Michelle. You have an impossible problem and you're like, I'm not sure which way to go. Mm-hmm. And what I would say in education, we need to be able to, not education, but in life, in general, in work, we need to leave space, enough time and space for authentic struggle to show up.
Yeah.
It will in any problem that you're facing. So oftentimes it reminds me of when I was driving my teenagers, and I had to learn real quick that when I had a teenager in the car, that if I just kept my mouth closed, I would hear more out of that kid, my own kid, more out of them about what was happening in their life, what was going on, than if I were to fill that space. Yeah. We have this natural need in life to fill the void. It's uncomfortable. Mm. And so when you're sitting in struggle and you see others struggling, and as a teacher in the culture of our world, we're meant to fix, we're meant to heal. We got into the profession because we love and we care, and it's very uncomfortable. It's not, unless you're given permission, like Michelle, you said you're in a climate where you're given permission to talk about it and being impossible and hard and being surrounded by people that care, that love and cherish you, to be able to give you the motivation to move forward. So are we able to design experiences that allow for authentic struggle to show up? And I would say it's productive only when you're seeing the behaviors of the adult or the child change as a result of the struggle. So it is not just that you're in struggle and you keep getting in struggle, but are you asking more questions? Are you transferring your knowledge from this problem to this problem? Are you reaching out across an aisle and communicating better as a result? So to me, that is when, whether it's designed, authentic, and then you want to wrap it into a bubble and call it productive, it's only productive when the human's behavior has changed in a direction that's positive.
Okay, I want to push back on you a little bit. I don't think I actually do this a ton ever, but my pushback would be that mentioning just the behavior changing, I think is a little too limiting for me. Okay. To me, even even if the person exists like physically or does the same behavior in like in a space, I'm okay with that. But if the mindset has changed and grown as a result of that struggle, to me that's a win, right? Mm-hmm. I may show up the same like demonstratively in a space, but if the last time that I was here, right, I got really hurt by this conversation, or I was like really frustrated or whatever, and it took me for a tizzy, and I couldn't like mentally, be well about whatever it was. If I show up in that same space and I was silent the last time, like let's say I pushed back or I was silent, and I'm doing it again now, if I leave this time with the mindset that I can make it, I can do hard things, or if my student does, that's a huge win to me.
Sure.
Another thing that I want to point out is when you look at the definition of to struggle, it is a forceful effort to overcome an obstacle, achieve a difficult goal, or fight against an opposing force. Fundamentally, it involves exerting energy and enduring hardship when things don't come easily. I want to highlight this one part of the definition, which is to fight against an opposing force. I am so intense about this conversation because I feel like as a culture, we do not make space for opposing ideas, opposing forces, opposing concepts, opposing conversations. And to me, that has been one of the biggest contributing factors to this is going to sound very intense, but to the weakness and the brittleness and the fragility that we see in some of our kids. We do not teach them that it's okay to disagree with somebody. We do not teach them that hey, you not being good at something is actually okay. You can get better at it, or you can not get better at it. You can go do something else. We do not make space for people that disagree with us. We do not prioritize engaging with things that are opposing forces to us. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I want to bring in what Mark said around the conditions where it's safe to not have the answers and where they feel supported, because I think he's tapping a little bit into what you're saying, Arvin, in that what are the conditions that we need to create for people to be able to disagree and for us to feel, and the word safe jumped out at me because I think one of the big conditions that is missing is this idea of psychological safety, that I can disagree with you, that I can take a risk, that it is okay if I don't have all the right answers, or that I fail at something. And I think we don't create those conditions for that in our classrooms, and we don't create the conditions in our workplace. And I guess this is like a fresh thought, but do we create the conditions for that in our society in general? Like, do people feel like society, the conditions are there to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, to not know? Brian's itching to say something. So What are you thinking, Brian?
I'm not good at hiding that. So I want to add to your psychological safety piece. One of the other conditions that needs to exist is the ability to respectfully disagree, to have a respectful discourse. Now, where is that modeled? I would say based on our culture, nowhere. Because in order to model that, you would have to get into concepts that don't fit on a bumper sticker and don't turn into a slogan. So where are you going to see respectful discourse modeled so you can learn it? So what is modeled is fighting and backstabbing and nasty language and just being kind of a jerk. We need to be able to model and then use respectful discourse, which requires a conversation that doesn't make a good soundbite.
True. I think the best teachers I've had to have, like my debate classes, right, where you're sitting with a problem and the teacher was a facilitator, right? And I think that where you sit back and allow for the students to learn, and the teacher makes sure there's respect, right? Making sure we don't cross lines or shout names at one another. But as students are learning, the ability to be able to voice themselves, and then it might have a counterpart disagree, and being able to be okay learning, right? Sometimes when we go through life, we see that one of the struggles I have is that myopic focus that we get in our lane, and we know our lane really, really well. And we struggle to see from a different perspective the same issue.
Yeah.
And when you that's why I love really good teams, right? Good teams approach it and tackle a problem or a struggle or an issue or an obstacle sometimes completely different than you. And that's that lesson of, oh my gosh, we have similar lives, but you came at this same problem a totally different way.
Yeah.
Opens up your eyes and your mind to change. And
well, Megan, that kind of brings it right back to the ego piece we were talking about earlier. Is a different way of doing something an opportunity or a threat? And that's just kind of about you.
It is.
Well, and Jason, this comment is just like blowing my mind. He says, I think productive struggle is about defining the type of humans we are becoming. And we fight through struggle when we know it will help us get closer to who we want to become.
So good.
So good.
It is. And it's making me think, like, is that a motivator for me, like, as I move through struggle and do hard things? Because I just haven't thought about it like that. And it makes me curious, like, unconsciously, how is that having an influence? Because I haven't, like, consciously thought, here's who I want to be, so I'm going to persevere through this task to get there. I don't know. I'm gonna go for it.
So that statement, Jason, thank you so much for tossing it in there, makes me think of this question, and it kind of started hovering earlier, but I think his comment just crystallized it. Who gets to decide how much struggle is enough? Who gets to decide how much struggle is enough, in what situations, in what settings? I know we're speaking about education in this podcast a ton, but we also have the concept of us talking about it at work. Michelle and I working at ProSolve, it's a struggle every day. We get impossible things. You guys have no idea the amount of stuff that our team is. Anyways, I can talk about my team forever, but who gets to determine how much struggle is enough, and in what environments, right? And how do we make that determination? How do we determine that? How do we measure that?
Well, right away, I think about and I'm going to think adult lens, like, I don't know that someone external, like, you don't get to decide how much struggle's too much, or my boss doesn't get to decide. I think it is about the skills that, like, am I able to emotionally regulate? Am I able to continue to have a positive outlook? Like, I wonder, like, this opens a whole nother can of worms, but I wonder about, like, burnout and how those collide. Like, too much struggle leads to burnout. Like, that would be an interesting topic, because I don't know that it's your manager decides it's too much struggle. I don't know. Like, now I'm just rambling, so somebody else jump in, because I'm just thinking out loud, because it's a great question, Arvin, on who decides how much struggle's enough.
I got a better question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like I'm immediately in tension and conflict with that question. Mm-hmm. So ideally, we would decide for ourselves.
Right.
But we don't know, and we rarely act in our own best interest. So I'm right back at square one. That's all I got.
Well, it's like working out. Okay. Yeah. So if those of you that are avid athletes, right, you know that if you get off the bandwagon and stop working out, how hard it is to get back on, right? How much struggle is too much. And it's like one of those it's a personal journey, and you have to make a commitment every day to better yourself and sit in that pain to be able to be a better version of yourself. And so I think, it depends on your own environment and how old you are, but if you're looking at a young 5-year-old versus an adult, it's a totally different type of conversation. And the environment that you're in, are you at home? Are you in church? Are you at school? Are you at work? Where are you at, and what makes sense? I think the variables for that, Arvin, are so vast and great. But I think, and some kids are born with grit. Mm-hmm. They just have it. They sit there with a problem and they go, Mrs. Freeman, no problem. I got this.
Are they born with it, or? I
really have seen children that are born with it, the ability to be able, to tackle things as part of their natural personality. And I've seen others, just like anything else, have to learn to sit in that space and be more comfortable being uncomfortable, and it's with a challenge. Mm-hmm. Some kids are like, let's go. So for 10 years, I taught first grade, and it was funny. They were so little, right? But you could really see these little humans and how different they were. And I would say there's always a good few, not all of them, Michelle. They were unicorns. I would tell you that for sure. But there were some that were just like gung ho problem solvers. And then there were others you'd have to kind of nudge into the group or collaborative circle to speak, to get over their fear of talking, to reduce their anxiety to participate.
I want to do another question on top, or to kind of follow up with that question. Not who, but how do we determine what struggle is like enough? Like how do we determine whether we intervened too early? Like what evidence, like what are some tangible observables that can help individuals decide when it's time to intervene, when it's not time to intervene, or anywhere in between that spectrum?
Let me go way out on a limb here. I think right now the way it's determined is external, based on outcomes or competencies or wherever something external to the learner or the person who needs to struggle needs to get to arbitrarily for reasons that have nothing to do with that person. And so that basically sucks. I think in the wonderful technology future where we have a learning educational repository and there's been some algorithm that's been tracking us since day one that genuinely can tell you this historically has been this person's cognitive load threshold. This is where they break. This is where they grow. If we had that kind of calibration and weren't abusing the hell out of it, that would be a chance where we would know where to draw that line. Do we know how to draw it now? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't even know where my line is. Like as you were saying that, like where you said the cognitive, where the cognitive line is, I don't even, do you know where yours is?
I think it's over there.
I'll say that.
I shut down. Like when I'm sitting in a space, so mine becomes physical, where it can be emotional at first, where I think emotion comes into it first, but then mine will become withdraw, right? So I will actually physically remove myself from a situation that might be uncomfortable. You see that, like, with people, the body language signals, right? Where you're seeing them, cross their arms, or maybe someone might get up and use the restroom more often. They might be uncomfortable, or people might do fidgety things when they get anxious, like drink extra water, or it's funny, like if you pay attention in a situation to the little quirky things that people do, you might find in yourself that when you're in really uncomfortable struggle bus situations that you do mentally shut off. And then sometimes I just physically will actually leave a space or get off of Zoom or cut myself off so I can take a minute to breathe, to regroup or connect.
Yeah.
So like for kids,
it's a matter probably of how quickly you come back from that.
Yeah. Like in kids,
let's walk away and give up at that point.
How my observation here is that I guess the statement is, I believe that the only possible way, Megan, that you could have learned that is by being in situations where you've struggled enough to know where that edge is and where that line is. I think in order to answer Michelle's question, many of us probably can't answer it because we haven't been pushed enough, or been in those struggles enough, like long enough, or sat in it long enough, sat in that frustration, or maybe even jumped off and absolutely crashed out enough to know where that line is. Some people can probably figure it out before they get to that point, but some people I think probably need time sitting right at the edge of that cliff, sitting at that line long enough to observe and to see how they're feeling, experiencing the world from that lens, in order to be able to answer that question. One of the things I also want to toss out here is I believe those are adult. That is so crazy because I did make a comment about dogs earlier. One of the things I was gonna say is, in my opinion, I believe that what we're talking about is hovering around the art of teaching. I feel and I believe that teachers, when they're in their fullest, best form, they're able to identify in their students where that line is, where the breaking point is, that they're not just creating the environment that's going to get them there, right? They're not just creating the content and the pathway to get them there, but they're also able to live in the moment, real time, see if a student needs that little nudge to go one step further, or see if that student needs a pep talk to say, hey, take a couple minutes, go do whatever, That is, to me, the art of the teaching. Whenever you look at teaching in the Greek, it comes from a word that means to draw out, and it speaks to drawing out of a well. And I say this all the time. I feel like I'm a broken record, but that's what we're talking about is, can I draw out of you? Can I put you in a situation where you can draw out of yourself what it takes to solve this problem that's in front of you?
And not rob them of that experience by saving them. So going back to the beginning, making sure that we give that space for those kids to be uncomfortable. And it might not look pretty, and you might feel like, gosh, I should go rescue them because I feel like I'm not. Sometimes people feel that they're mean as teachers when they sit there when a student's struggling. It's not being mean. It's actually helping them figure out and use their brains to solve a problem on their own. Because when they aren't blessed to be in your room any longer, they've got to build the skills and the capacity to function outside of your classroom. And that's those moments. Nothing in life that I've experienced as I've gone through struggle was easy. And it was not the easy time to define me. It's hard one.
Love it. Thank you, guys. That is a sign that it's time for Unavoidable Truth. This is a segment in the podcast where we want to highlight some unavoidable truths that were discussed, talked about, or discovered within this podcast. We're centering them around the idea of struggle, productive struggle. Here's kind of what I want. I kind of want to switch things up just a little bit, because I feel like I talked a lot, and I feel like our audience would love to hear the answers to this question. For an unavoidable truth, I want you to frame it in the perspective of you are talking to someone who is struggling with the idea of watching someone struggle. What wisdom, what insight, what unavoidable truth would you give to people who are currently struggling with allowing productive struggle to happen around them? Sorry, Jenna, I know I'm throwing a curveball there. If we can get also for the people watching too, or people in the chat, answer that question. What wisdom, what piece of advice, what best practice, what would you say to individuals who are struggling with watching the productive struggle?
I can jump in. I would summarize it as, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them think. Is you can create environments for learning, for struggle, for all these things to happen, but you can't make it happen. And that act of trying to make it happen is about you and not about the learner.
So good.
Sometimes the best things you can do is if you slow down, and as long as the person is not in imminent danger, right? Allowing yourself and them to sit in an uncomfortable space, knowing that you're there for them, but you're not going to enable them. And that's being the guide on the side, means allowing for them to see your presence, know you're there, but you believe in them enough that they can figure it out. Giving them space.
I love it. My piece, and I'll toss it to you, Michelle. My response would be, if you're struggling with watching people that you love in the productive struggle, if you're struggling with, rescuing them, I want you to sit and meditate on what you would be stealing from them. Sit and ask yourself. It's going to be different every time, but sit and meditate and ask yourself, what can this person learn if I don't hop in and remove the struggle? What are some potential takeaways that this person could get? What are some things that I need to develop and grow in by watching this struggle? I would say meditate and sit and think about what's being robbed.
That's powerful. I don't know if I can top it here. Like, I'm kind of at a loss for words after that. What I was thinking of is really take time to understand yourself and understand those that you are serving. So I think, so much of our conversation around how do you know where that line is comes from that self-awareness and then self-regulation. And so how do you have self-awareness for yourself as a leader or for an educator? And then also knowing those that are in front of you, where being really understanding their kind of their zone of proximal development, to throw some little edu jargon in, but what is their growth potential? What is their proximal growth edge? And then being able to create those conditions for them to reach it. And I think that really takes knowing people.
100%. I cannot agree more. Michelle, do you want to toss out any more of the responses in the chat
So many. So Jason Blair says, when a student's struggling, remember this is the moment the student is trying to become who they're meant to be. I just keeps going back to that. I love it. And don't rob them of that moment for discovery and identity formation. Mark says it's uncomfortable to watch someone engage in struggle, but so much growth and capacity is built as a direct result of overcoming struggle. So those are a couple of the comments.
I just there's something Jason just said, something that I feel like we probably need to do a whole episode on, and it is that idea of watching people become who they're supposed to be. Something about our concept of uniquely human, this theme, just feels so right with this conversation about struggle. And I mean, I would just pose the ending question, not to us to answer now, but what if the struggle that we're watching is that human actually becoming who they are? Just what Jason just said. I want that on repeat in your brains over and over and over. I love it. Thank you guys so much for hopping into this conversation. Really quickly, before we head out, Meghan, can you share with the audience where they can find you, find more about you, learn more about the work that you're doing, and just follow up and just keep up to date with all the stuff that you have going on?
Sure. Thank you, Arvin, so much. At MeghanKFreeman.com, you can find, I have everything I'm going on. I am the co-CEO of Illuminate XR. So we have immersive and AI neuroscience-based experiences focusing on humans and human intelligence. So it's very exciting, aligned here. And that is at IlluminateXR.com.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Dr. Brian?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Go ahead and check out the newsletter, The Humane Technologist.
The Humane Technologist. I love it. I love it. I love it. As you guys know, if you're watching us and you would like to keep listening and watching to future episodes or past episodes, you can hop onto Apple Podcasts, you can hop onto Spotify, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube. Hop over to TikTok for some smaller form content videos as well. Thank you, Jenna, so much for being our amazing producer behind the scenes, making all of the magic happen. You are phenomenal. If you are interested in joining up with us and linking up with this podcast and becoming a sponsor or learning more about what that would entail and how you can help, spread this message of human intelligence and keeping that at the center of every conversation, head over to thehumanintelligencemovement.org. There's a connect form there and you can learn more about us. Michelle, what is happening next week or the week after that?
Or the week after that? We are back June 25th. So we're off for 2 weeks and we'll be back with Jennifer Ellman and Michael McCormick. So join us on June 25th. That is really our last official day of this series. We've got something new and exciting in store starting in July. So I won't give too much more away, just a little teaser that it's going to be different, exciting, unique, but continuing to be unavoidable.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for hopping in here. Stay tuned for the next episode and we will catch you all later.